January 2028 just got buried in a federal database, and the burial certificate carries Sean Combs' prison number right on top. Forget every cute headline, forget every soft focus whisper campaign, forget every fantasy floating around social media about an early walk, because the Bureau of Prisons just flashed the real message in cold government ink. February 20th, 2028. Not January 24th. Not some magical date sliding closer because a team with good lighting and better spin found a sympathetic blogger. February 20th, 2028. A 27-day jump sounds small until a 27-day jump starts talking. And that date is talking loud. The streets keep treating the date change like a footnote. Big mistake. The date change is not a footnote. The date change is the trailer for a much uglier movie. A federal sentence does not move later for fun. A federal tracker does not wake up bored and start adding days to a celebrity profile because the internet asked for suspense. A date moves when discipline leaves fingerprints. A date moves when a facility finishes looking at a mess and decides a mess deserves consequences. A date moves when somebody inside a program starts looking less like a success story and more like a cautionary tale. Sean Combs just learned that lesson the hard way, and every person pushing January release fairy tales needs to sit down. Start with the part nobody in the spin room wants under a spotlight. The fight. Not a little argument. Not a tiny misunderstanding. Not a harmless moment of prison frustration. A real altercation. A real disciplinary event. A real moment where old instincts apparently walked into a federal facility wearing steel-toed boots. According to the reporting making rounds, trouble started because Sean Combs decided prison rules deserved negotiation. Bad move. Federal prison loves many things. Federal prison does not love improvisation around discipline. Picture the chain reaction. Smoking in an area that draws attention. Guards noticing the wrong smoke in the wrong place. A raid landing on the block. Contraband getting found. Somebody else losing a secret phone. Somebody else realizing one reckless flex just turned into a full-body headache for every inmate nearby. Anybody with 2 functioning brain cells can predict the next scene. Tension. Anger. Blame. Then one more bad decision. Instead of humility, escalation. Instead of a quick apology, chest-out energy. Instead of survival mode, ego mode. Sean Combs allegedly chose ego mode, and ego mode inside federal custody usually sends a bill. That bill has arrived, and the first invoice reads 27 days. Now comes the part that makes the whole situation worse. 27 days might not be the full price. 27 days might only be the processing fee. A lot of chatter online keeps asking one lazy question. Does a prison fight affect an appeal? Wrong question. The real question sounds uglier. What does a prison fight say about a man already sentenced under a cloud of violence, rule-breaking, volatility, and failure to control impulse? That question matters because federal judges read patterns, not just paperwork. Appeals may live on legal arguments, sure. Human beings still sit behind appellate titles, and human beings absolutely notice when a defendant's strongest public defense starts colliding with fresh proof of the exact behavior used to justify a stiff sentence. And that whisper gets louder once the calendar enters evidence. January 24th showed up on the federal release tracker earlier. Social media grabbed the screenshot like a winning lottery ticket. Celebration posts popped up. Victory laps started. Comment sections filled with nonsense about redemption, timing, secret legal genius, and divine favor. Then the tracker moved again. February 20th appeared. Same government system. Same inmate profile. Totally different mood. Funny how celebration disappears once arithmetic starts ruining narratives. Here is where the game gets serious. January 24th may never have been proof of safety. January 24th may have been automation. Federal systems update dates when program credits keep flowing and no new formal discipline interrupts the machine. A clean line on a tracker can reflect routine administrative motion, not a final blessing from heaven. Then an investigation closes. Then findings settle. Then sanctions hit. Then the machine reverses direction and the date tells the truth again. That pattern fits the movement almost too cleanly. The talk around Sean Combs keeps circling one powerful possibility. Time credits connected to rehabilitation programming, especially the kind of program famous for shaving months off a sentence when participation stays intact and conduct stays within the acceptable lane. That lane requires discipline. That lane requires credibility. That lane requires institutional trust. A vicious fight, if investigators concluded Sean Combs served as aggressor, torches all three. And aggressor status changes everything. A mere participant already catches heat. An aggressor becomes a facility problem. An aggressor inside a program marketed around rehabilitation starts looking like a walking contradiction. A facility can absorb one headache. A facility loses patience when headaches start stacking into a pattern. If administrators decide Sean Combs no longer belongs in a sentence reduction pipeline, previously earned benefits could vanish faster than a publicist facing a subpoena. That possibility explains the desperation better than any public spin ever could. Look at the sequence of reported problems. First, the fight. Before the fight, talk already existed about questionable behavior and prior infractions. Reports mentioned illegal three-way calling. Reports mentioned contraband alcohol, the famous hooch detail that keeps floating around like a bad smell no amount of cologne can cover. Add a violent disciplinary event on top, and the word cumulative starts glowing red. Federal discipline often punishes incidents one by one, but institutional risk gets judged as a pattern. Pattern is the killer. Pattern tells decision-makers whether a person learned anything at all or simply found new walls to bounce off. Now pause and examine the psychology behind the media campaign, because the media campaign says almost as much as the discipline. Once a date gets worse, once insiders start muttering about tears over breakfast cereal, once a prison fight starts bleeding into public conversation, a celebrity machine only has a few moves left. Deny scale. Soften blame. Blur timelines. Flood feeds with confusion. Keep audiences arguing over technicalities while the institution quietly writes harsher conclusions. Old PR playbook. Familiar rhythm. Very transparent. The loudest spin sounds something like this. The fight happened, sure, but the fight means nothing long-term. Nice try. A federal tracker does not add nearly a month because nothing happened long-term. Internal review does not finish and then punish air. A facility does not alter a projected release calendar out of boredom. Something landed. Something registered. Somebody lost ground. Sean Combs lost ground, and the paperwork seems to say so. Another spin line tries sounding smarter. Appeals are separate from prison discipline, so no problem. Technically tidy. Practically shallow. A legal channel can stay formally separate while human judgment absorbs every ugly headline. Judges read newspapers. Clerks see stories. Prosecutors frame narratives. Opponents seize optics. A defendant famous for violent allegations cannot afford a fresh story built around allegedly attacking another inmate after triggering a raid over prohibited conduct. Clean legal theory melts fast once ugly facts start marching across the page. Then the alleged response makes the optics truly poisonous. Somebody complains about contraband getting seized. Sean Combs allegedly does not shrink the temperature. Sean Combs allegedly raises the temperature. At that point, the story stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like instinct. Instinct is the dangerous word here. Judges forgive mistakes more easily than instincts. Administrators forgive stress more easily than patterns. A moment that reveals instinct tells authorities what might happen again. And that fear, what might happen again, is the real prison currency. Every facility asks a simple survival question during disciplinary review. What risk walks around the building if current behavior goes unanswered? A man with a reputation for anger plus a new violent event plus prior rule issues equals a risk profile moving in the wrong direction. Rehabilitation programs are not gift bags. Rehabilitation programs are bets. Administrators place those bets on people who look manageable, cooperative, predictable, and worth institutional investment. A headline-generating fight makes Sean Combs look expensive. Institutions hate expensive inmates. Now move to the cornflake story. Tears over breakfast may sound like gossip. Tears over breakfast also sound exactly like what happens when reality finally cracks through PR anesthesia. Sean Combs likely understood one thing the internet missed right away. The disciplinary result did not merely add days. The disciplinary result may have jeopardized an entire sentence strategy. A man can swallow 27 days. A man starts shaking when 27 days signals a much larger clawback waiting around the corner. And the database refused instructions. February 20th stands there like a bouncer at the velvet rope, arms folded, face blank, unimpressed by branding. February 20th says a disciplinary hearing officer or an internal process found something serious enough to matter. February 20th says officials adjusted credit status. February 20th says a system famous for cold procedure saw no reason to protect image management. That date has all the warmth of fluorescent lighting in a concrete hallway, which is exactly why the date feels credible. Another ugly layer hides beneath the release date talk. Sanctions rarely travel alone. Once formal discipline enters the file, collateral punishments can stack around the edges. Restricted commissary. Phone limitations. Housing consequences. Reduced privileges. Segregation exposure. Longer scrutiny. Greater caution from staff. Diminished patience from program administrators. Every one of those possibilities squeezes daily life and future positioning. Sean Combs may not only be counting days. Sean Combs may be counting losses in comfort, access, communication, and credibility all at once. That indifference is why every lie about January release deserves demolition. False hope is not mercy. False hope is anesthesia. False hope keeps supporters arguing about fantasy while institutions prepare the next concrete step. Anybody truly reading the signs should stop obsessing over January versus February and start obsessing over the disciplinary logic underneath the switch. The visible date change is the smoke. The hidden program review is the fire. Now watch how the fear compounds. Suppose investigators marked Sean Combs as aggressor. Suppose administrators decide repeated infractions show unwillingness to follow rules. Suppose program leadership concludes rehabilitation claims look performative instead of real. Under a chain like that, every earned reduction starts wobbling. A man once staring at a shorter road suddenly faces the possibility of months returning. Months, not days. Whole chunks of freedom pushed backward because one temper flare exposed the same old wiring. That possibility also explains why some voices keep trying to hide the aggressor question. Participant sounds messy. Aggressor sounds fatal. Participant leaves wiggle room for spin about chaos, mutual conflict, misunderstanding, prison pressure, everybody involved. Aggressor strips cover away. Aggressor tells the institution one body drove the violence. Aggressor converts a bad event into a character finding. Aggressor says, in plain federal subtext, rehabilitation may be a costume. And incident reports carry a different kind of authority because incident reports land inside the exact world currently controlling the calendar. Commentators can riff. Influencers can speculate. Defenders can cherry-pick. The institution decides which date appears next to the inmate number. That is why the most important sentence in this whole saga may be the simplest one. The release date moved later. Not louder. Later. Later is punishment translated into arithmetic. Every arithmetic shift now needs reading as a message. 27 days says formal trouble. A bigger future shift, if one arrives, would say formal collapse. The smartest way to watch Sean Combs from here forward is not through gossip headlines but through administrative signals. Program status. Credit status. Privilege status. Discipline status. Each status tells a truer story than 100 emotional monologues. The celebrity machine thrives on vibes. The prison machine thrives on entries, findings, and sanctions. Sean Combs built a public life on control. Control of rooms, control of images, control of narratives, control of access, control of who gets heard and who gets pushed aside. Federal prison flips that entire architecture upside down. A guard notices smoke. A block gets searched. A phone disappears. An inmate complains. A fight erupts. A report gets filed. A hearing lands. A date moves. Suddenly the man once famous for making clocks tick for everybody else is trapped watching someone else move the clock. No entourage can negotiate that screen. No loyalist can shout down that database. No slick caption can make February 20th disappear. The only real fix would require behavior convincing enough to restore trust inside a system that just received fresh evidence pointing the opposite direction. That kind of repair takes time, silence, discipline, and absolute restraint. Sean Combs just chose the worst possible week to remind officials of the old volatility. Now strip away the celebrity name and the case becomes brutally simple. An inmate reportedly receives favorable credit movement through a program. An inmate already carries a history of questionable conduct. A new violent incident erupts. Internal review allegedly finds rule violations serious enough to push the date back. Administrators now evaluate cumulative risk. Nobody in any neutral room would call that good news. Nobody in any neutral room would say, still getting out soon, with a straight face. Neutral analysis points one direction only. Danger ahead. Danger ahead for comfort. Danger ahead for credibility. Danger ahead for credits. Danger ahead for any argument claiming prison transformed Sean Combs into a safer, more rule-bound version of Sean Combs. Transformation stories need evidence. Fresh discipline supplies counter-evidence. That caution could shape every coming decision. Program review. Credit preservation. Privilege restoration. Future housing considerations. Institutional trust. Every category now gets filtered through one poisonous question. When pressure rose, what did Sean Combs do? Reported answer. Sean Combs escalated. Federal systems never reward escalators. Remember another dirty detail from the reporting. The issue may not stop at violence alone. Possible substance concerns still hover in the background. Any testing, any contraband review, any linked misconduct broadens the damage radius. Even unconfirmed whispers create dread because a disciplinary package can arrive as a stack, not a single sheet. One finding hurts. Multiple findings rearrange a sentence. Anybody enjoying the only 27 days line may be staring at the appetizer while a larger bill prints in the kitchen. The saddest irony might be the lost opportunity. Sean Combs reportedly fought hard to get into the kind of program that can shave serious time, polish image, and hand lawyers a clean talking point about effort, reform, and forward motion. That opportunity carries real value. Plenty of inmates would guard that opportunity with religious devotion. Plenty of inmates would avoid every petty conflict, every ego contest, every unnecessary spotlight. Sean Combs allegedly did the opposite. One hot moment may have placed a blowtorch under months of progress. Nothing destroys sympathy faster than squandered privilege. Some people still want to believe money, celebrity memory, and media choreography can smooth the path. Federal custody does not care about old hit records. Federal custody does not care about luxury branding. Federal custody definitely does not care about online wishful thinking. Federal custody cares about conduct. Conduct forms patterns. Patterns create risk scores in human minds. Human minds produce sanctions. Sanctions move dates. That chain now sits around Sean Combs like a steel fence. Any serious observer should start preparing for two separate realities. Reality 1, February 20th, 2028 stays put, proving the institution punished the fight but stopped short of a total program collapse. Reality 2, February 20th becomes another midpoint after deeper review strips away more credits and more hope. Reality 2 explains the panic. Reality 2 explains the whisper campaign. Reality 2 explains why a seemingly modest date change suddenly feels like a full-blown alarm. Look back at the whole arc one more time. A man with a public history shadowed by violent accusations enters federal prison. A man seeks relief through structured programming. A man reportedly collects earlier benefits. A man then allegedly breaks rules again, triggers a block-wide problem, gets linked to a serious fight, and winds up with extra time attached. Every word in that chain bends the same direction. Nothing in that chain says stability. Nothing in that chain says growth. Nothing in that chain says safe release acceleration. The chain says unraveling. Once institutions start viewing someone as a recurring management issue, each new review begins from suspicion, not optimism. Each future benefit requires stronger proof. Each excuse sounds thinner. Each argument about misunderstanding lands on ears already tired of misunderstanding. Sean Combs may now be living under the most dangerous prison condition possible for sentence reduction. Dwindling credibility. Receipt for a fight. Receipt for a pattern. Receipt for the gap between public spin and institutional judgment. Receipt for the possibility that a much bigger sanction may still be warming up backstage. One final piece needs saying because the whole story turns on a single brutal concept. Prison always reveals whatever discipline outside money used to hide. Wealth can cushion bad habits in free society. Fame can blur consequences in free society. Staff, drivers, assistants, handlers, and publicists can soften landings in free society. Federal prison strips that insulation away and asks one merciless question. What remains when control disappears? According to the current calendar, the answer does not flatter Sean Combs. February 20th, 2028 may look like a date. February 20th, 2028 is actually a verdict in miniature. Not the last verdict. Not the biggest verdict. A miniature verdict, still. The number says a review happened. The number says ground got lost. The number says the campaign claiming everything is fine deserves a funeral right next to January 24th. So forget the soft leaks. Forget the fantasy countdown. Forget the smiling spin meant to dull the edge. Watch the database. Watch the program. Watch the next disciplinary ripple. Watch every future adjustment like a detective studying a blood trail. Sean Combs may not be fighting a single extra month. Sean Combs may be fighting the collapse of the only clock that once offered hope. And once hope starts getting written in pencil instead of ink, every breakfast tastes like defeat.